Welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast with your host, Funk Roberts.
We are live, and welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast. This is episode number 157, and I'm your host, Funk Roberts, former professional athlete turned master metabolic trainer, certified hormone and testosterone expert, and a health and fitness guru for men over 40, 50, 60, 70. And today, I am your host of this podcast that's specifically designed for you, the man over 40, where we talk about how to naturally increase your testosterone levels. We talk about mindset strategies, workouts and training, nutrition, recovery, both physical and mental, sleep, supplementation, health issues. But on today's podcast, we have Dre Baldwin from DreAllDay to talk about how we can change our lives, how we can upgrade our lives through mindset, through discipline, through mental toughness. And I think sometimes even people from the business world can give us tips and strategies that we can apply to our regular lives, as well, of course, as well in our own business or our own work. But we want to be able to take from everybody and take what's the best things that we can get from each person and then apply it to our lives. So I was really excited when Dre and his team reached out, and they were excited about being on the Over 40 Alpha podcast because Dre Baldwin, as he was known as DreAllDay back in the day, former basketball player who took his, he was one of the first guys on YouTube, from day one. And his focus was basketball, right? How to play basketball, how to, different moves, all skills, drills, and became really, really big. But one of the things that he said that started to happen was, any type of high level sport, he played professional in Europe. It's a mindset, it's discipline, it's that mental toughness, and that thing applies to everything in life. So, from that, he transitioned into work on your game. And over the last 18 years, he's changed lives. He's changed over 103 million entrepreneurs, athletes, and business professionals through his copies of his books, his courses, his programs. And he's also done a lot of personal and professional development through content. And he's built a business that's helped, thousands to master their game. So I was excited to have him here because I think his knowledge, he's the CEO of and the founder of Work on Your Game. If you go to Dre Baldwin, he's been given 4 TED Talks on discipline, on confidence, on mental toughness, and on personal initiative. He's authored 35 books, and he's also been in campaigns with Nike, with Wilson, with Wendy's, Gatorade, Buick. So I think when we have Dre on, you can see that he's very focused. He speaks to the mindset piece. And of course, remember, he's helping entrepreneurs and professionals, but anything that you can use to help you in the business world or entrepreneurship, those things can be used in your own personal life to help you stay focused with your health and fitness. So whether you're going to take some of the things that he talks to us about and apply it in the health and fitness world, your own health and fitness world, or you are a business owner, you are an entrepreneur, you are a CEO that wants to up your game, that wants to work on your game, you're going to get some incredible information from Dre Baldwin. So with that, I want you to enjoy the podcast. Get it done. We are live, and welcome to the podcast. Today, I'm really excited because we have Dre Baldwin in the house. And before we start, one of the biggest struggles for most men, specifically when it comes to, a fitness program or health program is that mindset, right? Motivation. How do I stay motivated? How do I get that accountability? But it's the mindset that is going to drive the behaviors that we do. And so today I have Dre Baldwin, who is going to take us through how to get that done. So Dre, thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Funk, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man. So why don't we dive into your journey, your origin journey? Because how did you get from where you were before as a basketball player to doing what you're doing today, helping so many people?
Sure. Well, could be a long story. I'll give you the short version.
That's okay.
Okay, well, come from the city of Philadelphia. I was always in the sports growing up. Got to basketball, go to weight probably around age 14. So that's kind of late if you're trying to go somewhere in the sport, like play in college or play pro. So high school only played 1 year, sat the bench mostly for that 1 year. Walked on to play college at the Division III level. So those who are not familiar with sports, Division III is the third tier. Usually the pro guys come from D1, D2. I was D3. So no pro scouts are coming to check for us, no matter how good you are. And then when I got out of college, I still wanted to play basketball professionally, but of course I had no connections and nobody had been watching me because I was playing at this school and in a league where no pros were produced. So my first year out of school, I worked, and mind you, I graduated college in 2004 to give everybody a framework here. And my first year out of college, I worked a couple quote unquote regular jobs. I worked at Foot Locker as an assistant manager. I worked at a gym called Bally Total Fitness selling memberships. They're out of business now, not because of me. I sold a lot of memberships. And then in the summer of 2005, a year after graduation, I went to this event called an exposure camp. Funk, you familiar with those? Heard of them?
No.
So an exposure camp's like a job fair, but for athletes. Okay. So it's like a place you go. If you're an athlete, you're unemployed, but you want to get a job, you show up to an exposure camp. Okay. And you don't just go there and talk and shake hands like at a normal job fair. You bring your sneakers and you play. So imagine a whole bunch of guys who think they're good enough to play pro ball, but they're not playing right now. Or maybe they played a little bit, but they're on the fringes. So they're trying to revive or start their careers. We all show up in the same place and we play against each other. Right. I went to an event like that. It was a only 2-day event. It was in Orlando, Florida. And I told you I'm from Philly. We rented a car, me and a couple of my now former college teammates. We rented a car and drove from Philly to Orlando. It was about 19 hours. Yeah. And hopped out the car and we started playing on a Saturday. And we hopped out the car right when the event started. So at age 23, I could get away with that. Probably couldn't do it now. No. But I could do it then. And played pretty well there. I leveraged my performance there. I had a scouting report. I leveraged that performance to go get an agent. And I had to cold call agents. So people who don't understand how the professional sports world works, if you're a really good athlete, so let's take somebody like Deion Sanders' son, who's a quarterback for Colorado, right? At the end of this season, if he's thinking about going pro, he's going to have 20 agents calling him, trying to represent him, and he gets to pick one. So me, no agents were calling me. So I was calling them, right? So when you're really good and they know you, they call you. When you're nobody and nobody knows you, you got to call them. So I called them. I called about 50 agents, probably closer to 60. And cold calls, just straight up cold calls. If I found their phone number, I called them. I found one agent to represent me. He is the one who got me on. So that's how I started my pro career playing overseas. That was in Kaunas, Lithuania in late summer 2005. So that's how I got into pro basketball. At the same time, the footage from that event was on this thing called a VHS tape. You remember those?
100%. I remember Beta.
I don't remember Beta, but I do remember VHS. Right. So the VHS tape was my footage from that exposure camp, the one I went to and played well. And I knew that a VHS tape, you lose it, then you lose all the footage. But I needed that footage because it was very valuable to me. I went and got it put on a data CD because now it's digital. And then I uploaded it to this brand new website that had just come out, and it claimed that you could put as much footage up on the site as you want for free. And it was called youtube.com. And that's where I started to build the name for myself and a brand online, because I was just putting basketball content out from 2005 to about 2010. And I was still playing overseas at this time, going between different countries, different places, and putting videos on YouTube every now and then. But I knew there was an audience of people who were obviously learning basketball from me because they were coming to me, even though they weren't looking for Dre Baldwin. They were just looking for basketball, period. And I just happened to be supplying it. So it's kind of like being a drug dealer at the right place, right? I was just they weren't looking for me. They were just looking for what they needed. And about 2009, I was unemployed from basketball, waiting for the phone to ring. It was not ringing. And at this time, several things happened all at the same time, which starts the kind of the transition to where we are now. Okay. So number one is Google purchased YouTube. So now the more content you put on YouTube, the more you get seen. Now you can make some money just from getting seen on YouTube. So that was one. Number two, I asked myself a really important question, which is how can I start making some money from this thing that I'm doing on the internet? Because at this time, no personal branding, being an influencer, this was not something you grew up wanting to be. This was just becoming a thing, right? Social media was barely even a phrase at this time. So I just asked myself a really good question, and that good question kind of led to where we are now, which I'll get to in a second. Number three is self-publishing for writing books became a thing. I always knew I wanted to write a book or books, but I knew I didn't want to go through the traditional process because you got to basically jump through hoops to get a book published traditionally, which I've done, but I've done a lot more on my own. So that started to become a thing. And number 4 is I just finished reading a book called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, which most people are familiar with. And I was reading his blog at the time. And one of the things that Tim mentioned was, if you want to sell a product online, here's a little cheat sheet on how to test out your product idea. I followed his little experiment, and I started selling $4.99 training programs to basketball players. So that is how I became an entrepreneur, technically, is when I started selling those $4.99 training programs. One was for dribbling, one was for shooting. Those were my first 2 products. And they started selling immediately. And when I did that, Funk, what I said to myself was, I can do this for the rest of my life. Because at the time, I'm a professional athlete. I understood for several reasons that being an athlete has a very short shelf life. Number 1, because, you do see players retire, they're not even 40 years old. And number 2, I came out of a Division III school, so there was no guarantee that I was going to get the first job, let alone the next one. So I knew I had to be looking at what's the next opportunity after basketball and how can I kind of leverage basketball to the next thing. And once I realized that I could take ideas out of my head, turn them into real products, put a price tag on it and sell it, I said, well, okay, if this works, I can take everything I know and sell it and make money off of it. So that's really where that started. And that was all between 2009 and 2011. All of this stuff happened all at the same time. Luckily, the phone did ring again. I kept playing pro ball till 2015. Okay. And by that time, when I stopped playing in 2015, I had several things going that may be different from the normal athlete transitioning, because most athletes, when they transition, they have better careers than me. So they were always employed. Right. So they didn't have to think about what's next because they were employed full time. Because I experienced periods of being unemployed from basketball, I started focusing on building a brand, building an audience, building an email list, writing books, creating products. I was looking at all these things because I wasn't sure, again, that every time the phone rang, there was no guarantee it was going to ring again. So one thing is a kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing I tell people, Funk, is that had I been a better basketball player, I probably would have been a worse entrepreneur because I would have started later. Right. So I got better at entrepreneurship because I didn't have a choice. So when I stopped playing in 2015, I already had those things going. And since 2015, this has been about 10 years now, I've been doing this. Work on Your Game is our company full time. What I do here is basically we take the stuff that helps athletes get to the top of the sports world. We translate them over to the business and professional world to help people perform at their highest level, do so consistently, and produce more results. Usually in business, that means making money. And I've got some gaps in there, but I'm sure we'll get to it in this conversation.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, you were I love how you were at the forefront of YouTube. I was around the same time posting my my workout videos, and then moving into fighters, right? You'll see training for fighters, so same kind of thing, and same thing with finding out that wow, this one product, mine was actually a jump training product because I used to be a professional indoor and beach volleyball player. That was, okay, wow, this reaches the world. So that's amazing. And I just feel like all of the way your story with Division III and all of those things really helped, those skill sets helped you with where you're at today and the business sense. So what were some of the things that you did to keep you on track, right? Like you seem like you're very self-motivated, but I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know what athletes that after they're done their career, they have everything straight. But I know that in specific sports, specifically if we just talk MMA, a lot of those athletes don't have all of this. So what were some of the things that drove you to do what you do today?
Man, that's a great question. I think, well, number one is that I just always knew I wanted to create success. I want to create some success for me, or I would call it winning. So in the sports world, that's winning. In the business world, maybe it's making money, serving people, just being able to take care of yourself, building a lifestyle business, whatever it is. I just knew that I wanted to win and create more success for myself. So I've always had that drive. And it's funny that you asked that because I'd always thought, Funk, that everybody thought like that. I thought it was a normal thing. I thought, who wouldn't want to be more successful? Who doesn't want to be better now than they were 5 years ago, right? Who wants to show up to their high school reunion looking the same that they looked last time you saw them, except they just got older, right? Who wants to do that? I thought that was normal. And even with mindset, which I know we're going to talk about, when I started talking about mindset, is a funny thing because I didn't think it was a big deal because I was just breaking things down like discipline and confidence and mental toughness. And I thought people already understood it. I thought I was just preaching to the choir. But when people would respond to it, they would say things like, I never heard anybody explain it that way. And I was hearing this from athletes and the non-athletes. Right. And that's how I started to realize, okay, this way that I think is not normal. Most people don't think like this. So I realized is something that I didn't even consider that unique. was the actual value. That was the diamond. That this just made my ability to break things down and explain them. That's really my superpower, is to take something that may seem complex to somebody and make it simple enough for them to understand and to apply. So to answer your question, again, it was always just in me. And again, I didn't think it was anything unique about it. I thought it was just, who doesn't want to get better?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's the answer.
I think you're right. Like a lot of people, like I was kind of the same way. It's like, oh, doesn't everyone think like this? But
right,
like you mentioned, I think everyone wants to get better. They just don't know how. So that transition between posting basketball stuff to mindset, like where did that transition happen? Why? What drove you to do that? Based on like that's a total that's A and Z. Like they're not even.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, excellent question. So what happened was I had all these basketball players who were watching me on YouTube between 2005, 2009, slowly growing audience. Eventually, the thing that they ran into was that all I was showing them was how to practice, how to dribble, how to shoot, how to jump higher so you can dunk and all that kind of stuff. Just on the court, tactical, how to do the moves. Now, the players started to come to me for two reasons. Number one, they said, well, who is this random guy on the internet who keeps putting content on YouTube for free? Because again, this was not a thing. It wasn't a career to put videos on YouTube. So who is this guy and why is he doing this? They want to find out more about me. So I would, every once in a while, I would make the talking head video where I'm just sitting there talking and just explaining, hey, this is where I'm from. This is what happened in high school. Here's where I went to college. Here's what I do now. Just so they can get to know the guy behind the drills.
Right.
And when I started talking about that, the story that I just told you, the people in the audience started to say, wow, that's interesting. I got cut from my high school team too, but I quit. You kept going. I had to walk on in college too, and nobody was checking for me after college, so I gave up on basketball, but you kept going. So who is this guy? What's the mindset of someone who would keep trying despite these very humble beginnings that I had and the many quote unquote realities in front of me that said, this ain't going to work. But you kept doing it anyway. So they just wanted to know more about the mindset behind me. And that's the first clue that I had, that this mindset thing was a little bit different than most people. And the other thing was the players were watching the videos and they were saying, well, Dre, I got the drill down, but then I get in the game and I can't use it. And they were realizing that without the mindset link, all the physical tools in the world would not work. If you didn't have the right mentality, you could have all the resources and things still aren't going to hit. So in 2010, I made this video. I was in the gym, actually, just finished recording drills as usual, and I made this one selfie video and I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do, guys. Y'all keep asking me about mindset, so every Monday what I'll do, if you want it, is I'll just make a little video where I talk about mindset, and I'll call it the weekly motivation, and I'll just talk for just a couple minutes, just giving y'all a little mindset piece because so many of you are asking about it. I think you all need it. And now at the same time, I was coming to the realization that they didn't understand it the way that I did, because again, you can't tell. Like, I could tell if I watched you on a basketball court if you need help dribbling, shooting, moving, because I can just watch you.
Right.
So you can't see somebody's mindset. So you can't measure it. You can't count it. So I don't know if someone needs mindset help until I start talking to them and they start hearing me. So they were telling me, now I realize it. So I made that video and the response was overwhelming. People said, yes, 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 please do some mindset every week. So I did that weekly motivation, about 2 to 5 minute selfie video. This is before we had cameras on our phones. So this is on my cheap little $100 camera. Every week. I did that every week for 400 weeks in a row, Funk. And those 400 videos were the key to the transition from the basketball guy to the guy you're talking to today.
Right.
Because those videos, number one, three things happened. Number one, the athletes started to say to me, Dre, the way that you break down mindset is better than the way you break down basketball. Like, you need to be talking about that like all the time. You could be a coach or a philosopher or a college professor the way you're explaining it. That was one. Number two, people who didn't play sports started finding my content on YouTube, because at that time, all of my stuff was just basketball.
Right.
So now people who didn't play basketball were starting to see me because of that one video every week. And I was putting out videos every day at this point, but they were finding that one video a week. Like, hey, this stuff applies to me and I don't play basketball. Or I heard my son listening to you and I heard it and I said, that stuff is useful for me. Mm-hmm. So that was number two, telling me, hey, this is valuable off the court. And I was always looking for what am I going to do after basketball? Because I knew I didn't want to be a trainer or a coach. I want to step away from basketball. Well, who can I serve? All I got is this basketball experience. What do I have for them? But when I realized that people who didn't play ball like the mindset stuff, I said, perfect. That's exactly who I can serve. And number three, 400 weeks in a row of of practice articulating yourself makes you really good at it. So I was basically got my 10,000 hours in doing those videos. So by the time I stopped playing, I was ready to do professional speaking. I was ready to do TED Talks. I could coach a person because I had all this practice doing YouTube videos. Now I just had to get some proof of doing it in real life, still, and I got that. But all three of those things happened during that period of explaining the mindset stuff from sports and how it starts applying to life.
Okay, so let's talk about how it applies to life, because that's one of the biggest struggles for most people starting a program. They'll get excited about the nutrition, they'll get excited about the workouts, but then after a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or maybe they get that first, they lose some weight, they get some really good results at first, but then of course it's the month 2, month 3, month 4 when the results aren't exactly the same. How do you stick to it? So what are some things that people can do, and how can they use that mindset to help them stay motivated and keep on that journey?
Great question. So the first thing I tell people is that when you're a professional, we're not looking for motivation. It's cool if you got it, but what we need is discipline. Because the number one hallmark of a professional is that they're disciplined. And discipline means you are prepared ahead of time, that you do your homework. In other words, you are consistent and you're reliable. People know what to expect from you. That's what makes you a professional. And to do that, that means you have to show up and deliver even when you don't feel like it. Right. Because the best professionals out there have days that they don't feel like performing, but if you watch them, you couldn't tell me which days they didn't feel like it versus the days they did feel like it, because their performance is consistent. That's what makes a professional a professional. So if you happen to be motivated, cool, that's great. That's like you found some money on the street, but that's not what we're depending on in order to perform. You have to show up all the time and deliver anyway. And I call that process, we call it the third day. So the third day is all about that day when you realize that the party's over, the new car smell is gone, and this thing that you signed up for is going to take some real work. So it's like, I'm sure you're working with clients in the fitness space. Yeah. They feel good the first day, but the second or third day, they got all that soreness building up. They don't really feel like it. And that's the day when we find out who's really going to keep showing up and who's not. And as a professional, you don't have a choice. You don't have an option. You have to show up and deliver. So that's what it really is that a lot of times, especially in my line of work, Funk, a lot of times people come to me and they're asking the wrong question. And my job as a coach is to identify the question they should be asking rather than answering the one that they are asking. Because you can get answers to the questions that you are asking on Google, right, but you're still going to be stuck. What you need is to ask a better quality question, which is something that I talk about when we talk about AI and stuff like that. AI can't do that, at least not yet. And that's where you need humans.
Okay, so let's talk about the question, because a lot of people don't know what question to ask, right? Like, if I haven't worked out let's say I'm 40 years old, I'm 55, but let's say I'm 40 years old, haven't worked out in years, I've just been focusing on family, career, I'm out of shape. I don't know anything. I don't even know what to do at the gym. So what are the right questions to ask myself when I want to start a program?
The first thing you should ask yourself is who does know? Who does have the answers to the questions? Yeah. And then you go find an expert who already knows their stuff, which cuts down on your learning curve. So that person if they said that to me, I say you need to go find a trainer. Find somebody who's used to working with people like you so that you're not in there going through trial and error, because you ain't got that much time. Yeah. You don't have enough time to go through all the trial and error. You need to go find somebody who's already done it, who already knows exactly what to do, so that instead of you achieving your outcome in 3 years, you can achieve it in 3 months. So whatever amount of money that you pay that person, what you're paying for is not the information, you're paying for the time. Because if you take through a 3-year process and shorten it down to 3 months, what you're buying is 33 months of time. So how much is that worth financially? Right. Is it more than how much it costs? Yes. Then there's a no-brainer to make the purchase. That's what investment is about.
Yeah. And I think what happens a lot with men is just they have a hard time asking for that help, right? So So the question's like, okay, well, yeah, and who's the right person and what have you. So really diving in to see who knows. And then once they find that person, what's the next question they should be asking to keep them on track?
Once you find that person, well, there are no more questions. The next order of operations is shut up and listen.
Okay.
That's anyone who works in the coaching space, any type of coaching, personal training, consulting, physical therapy, coaching, life coaching, business coaching. Yeah. The best coaches have the best players. I tell people this all the time. The most successful coaches are the ones who are good at picking the best clients. And the best clients are the ones who listen, execute, follow through, are invested, and they do everything you tell them to do. So if you are any good, your clients are going to make you look good. Now, if you pick bad clients, then you're going to look bad no matter how smart you are. So it's kind of like basketball coach John Wooden. You heard of him?
Of course.
UCLA. Yeah. Right. So he won, I believe it was 11 championships. And there was a period they won like 90 something straight games, and the college season is only 30 or so games. And someone once asked him, Coach, what is it that makes you such an amazing coach? And he said, well, easy, have the best players. Right. And he was being tongue in cheek, but at the same time, he was completely correct. So if we go to a more modern example, most people listening to this, if you're a little bit younger, everybody knows who Michael Jordan is, right? You know Kobe Bryant, all right? Who was their coach? Phil Jackson. All right? Phil Jackson didn't win 11 rings by accident. He won 11 rings because he picked the best players to coach. He didn't pick a bunch of bums and do magic. He picked really good players and he helped them be successful. So if you want to be anyone there, once you find a person who knows their stuff and you trust that they know their stuff, your job is to now do everything that they tell you to do and don't question it.
Okay, I like that. I wish everyone listened that way, but a lot of people like to take their will back. But no, I think that's important. So with your program, do you have a system in place? Like,
Yes.
because I see that it's people in the finance business, people in all different niches, your system seems to still work for all of them. So can you go through that system with us?
Absolutely. So we have a 4-part process, 4 pillars, we'll say, that is based on mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability. So the mindset, which is the foundation, it's the foundation of this conversation right here. I tell people all the time, again, if you have, actually I mentioned earlier, if you have all the right tools in the world, physically, financially, connection, relationally, you have all the tools in the world, but your mindset is off, you will still fail. You will still come up short. Mindset is the foundation of all success, is the foundation of all failure, is the foundation of all mediocrity. Anytime someone's coming up short from their goal, there's something mentally that is in the way. So we got to get the mindset right first. And our framework for that is called the bulletproof mindset. So that's all about just laying the foundational pieces of everything. So here in Miami, I'm sure there in Toronto, there are plenty of high-rise buildings, right? And construction going on. And when you look at those high-rise buildings, the penthouse looks amazing, but the penthouse doesn't exist without the foundation. And the foundation is the part that you don't even see. But if it falters, everything comes apart. And that's exactly how mindset is, a metaphor for mindset, because you can't see, measure, or count mindset. But if your mindset is off, it affects everything else. And it's the same thing with one of those buildings. If the foundation is off, the whole thing tumbles down and somebody's getting sued. Right? So the mindset goes first. The second step is the strategy. And the strategy is simply a plan of action. And the plan of action is based on what we call the roadmap in reverse. So we figure out where you want to get to, what the goal is, and then basically deconstruct from there back to where we are now. So now we know what steps we need to take in order to get from here to there. The third part is the system. The system is all about how do you take that strategy once you find what works, because not every plan is going to be perfect, right? So we have to adjust plans along the way. But once we find out what works, how do we create a process so that you can do the same things the same way every time? And examples I use for that is you take something like Starbucks or McDonald's. If you go to McDonald's there in Toronto, you go to McDonald's here in Miami, we order the same thing and put them next to each other. No one can tell me which one came from which store. And that's because they have such a tight system that it doesn't matter, right? Because it's the same thing every single time. And it's also why you don't need a bunch of geniuses working the fry machine at McDonald's, because the system is the star, not the people, right? So when you have the right system, you can have lower quality people doing the job because the system is more important than the person. And in McDonald's, as a good example, McDonald's, you go in there now, what do you see? You don't even see people. You see laptops, you see boards, right? They're replacing the people with the ordering boards, right? So you can just order on the screen. You don't even talk to a person. So those used to be people. Now they're replacing them with robots. Amazon's doing the same thing. Starbucks will probably do it. And there was another company I was thinking, I can't remember. Oh, Whole Foods. I go to Whole Foods. There used to be 10 checkout lines with people at each one. Now there's 25 self-checkouts. The computer does it, and you got to do the work. I got to bag my own groceries, all right? And they only have three people working those registers, and those people should know they're coming for your job. All right, those computers are about to take your job. Anyway, I'm getting off the subject, but that's what a system does. When you have a great system, you don't need people. All you need, well, you do need them, but not really, because they're interchangeable. They become fungible because the system is the star, not the person. And then the last step is the accountability / implementation. That's putting everything to use, making sure that all the people are doing their jobs, whatever people you do have, and making sure that the process is doing its job. Because just because you have a process doesn't mean you're going to be successful, because you might have a process that doesn't work. right? So you got to make sure you have a process that actually works and is getting the result and making your adjustments along the way, because what worked for McDonald's 10 years ago is not the same thing as working for them now. They have to make adjustments along the way. So that's where the accountability part comes in. So those four pieces together, that's how our process works.
Yeah, I love the four pillars because it definitely links to the fitness side, right? You got to have the mindset, meaning, what is your why? What's going to keep you going? Where do you want to get to? And then it's the strategy. Okay, so this is what I want to look like, or this is how much I want to lose. So what is the strategy getting there? Okay, well, I got nutrition, I got, workouts, I've got recovery, all of those things in place. And then you need a system. You need to put all of that into a system that makes sense, right? Okay, I'm going to work out this day. I'm gonna eat these foods. I'm gonna stay away from these foods. So that system generally stays the same. Specifically, if you want a lifestyle, and then of course the accountability, because and I think the accountability is key, because once you have all things in place, how do you know things are working? How do you know that you're doing the right things? And a lot of times, if you're doing something for 3 months and you still don't see results, you need that support or the accountability to say, okay, no, you're on the right track. You're just, a couple of feet away from getting those results, because a lot of people I find will quit before they get to the goal. So do you have anything in place for that? Like, how do we steer people away and keep them having faith and hope that, yes, what they're doing is the right thing?
Well, the biggest thing there is just having other people around you who are either on the same journey or someone who can offer that assurance that, yes, we are doing the right thing, you're making progress. And it's kind of like making sure that you're measuring yourself against yourself, not against the ideal, because depending on how big your goals are and how ambitious you are, you can spend a whole lot of time being far away from the goal. Right. But if you have people around you who are on the same path and y'all all can support each other, or you have someone like a coach or a trainer around you, someone you trust who's an expert, they can show you, okay, look where you were, look what you're doing now. Right? Maybe, and I don't know the fitness world deep, but I do know that in fitness, sometimes when someone's trying to get in shape, their body shape may change before the number on the scale changes. Right? So they're making progress, but they still weigh the same amount. And they might think, oh, well, that must mean it's not working. That's not the case. And traditionally, that's been taught. Like, if you're getting in shape, that means the numbers on the scale must change, but that's not always the case. So it's having the right people around you who can reinforce. And it's a concept that I've been thinking about because I was reading their book. Are you familiar with Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they talk about the gap and the gain, right? So, right, a lot of people get too caught up. The gap is basically the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And if you have big goals, again, that can be a very big gap. Whereas the gain is about looking at where you were 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and seeing that, yes, there has been progress, even though it might not be the progress that you want. And a lot of times people get into this mindset of being short, of that scarcity mindset. I haven't done it, I haven't done it, I haven't done it. No, that does create more of what you don't want. But when you are able to focus on and identify, hey, I have made progress, I have created success, and you reinforce that to your subconscious, then you come up with more reasons and more experiences that show that you are making gains. So the mindset, again, comes right back to the mindset. It's just the way that you're thinking. And do you have the supporting elements, which can be people, in place to help you stay mentally on track where you're supposed to be?
Yeah, I like that. I like the not focusing on that gap, but on the gains. Those small gains are going to be key to those the motivators to keep you going through this long journey, because it's a lifestyle, right? Like, this is, I always say, guys, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, like, this is it. Like, this is not a 90-day program. This is a new lifestyle, new way of eating, new way of training, new way of just leveling up. And speaking of leveling up, I'm actually going to change gears a little bit, because a lot of men in my program who are or listening to this right now are getting close to retirement. Right, they're getting close to the retirement age. They may be getting laid off because they're a little bit older, and thinking about that next step in life, because I find that we have a lot of skills that we've gained in the business world or in our career that we don't necessarily transition over. And I know that you help a lot of people in the business world and what have you, entrepreneurs, etc. What is there a silver lining for men who retire? Like, can you create a new career, based on what you've learned, or maybe even having a coach like you helping them along the way?
Creating a new career, meaning like they want to start another business?
Yeah, because a lot of times I find that, what you do is you're coaching entrepreneurs and getting them through their own businesses. And a lot of times men don't feel like they can do that, take that next step, right?
Right.
Do you help? Like, can you help? What are some ways that, you can get these guys the help that they need?
Absolutely. So if someone's, a lot of the people that we work with, I would say about half of them they were already entrepreneurs before they met me, and they want help with the business that they're running. And then the other half are transitioning people. So they could be transitioning out of active military duty, working for the military on the like a desk job side. It can be someone transitioning out of corporate or a former athlete. Right. So half of our people are transitioners and half of them are already entrepreneurs. So absolutely. So if someone wants to kind of make that switch, and actually we work with some people who want to stay in their professional career. They just want some coaching on not necessarily how to do their job because they already have that training, but on everything around the job. We work with a lot of those people as well. So absolutely, because the work on your game framework, I had this guy who was a 21-year military vet. He said this to me. He said, Dre, your program is industry agnostic. It doesn't really matter where someone comes from because the framework that you have can apply to anyone as long as they follow it. And I stole that line from him, and I still use that when describing what we do. And that's the reason why you probably saw it on our site. We have a bunch of people from so many different places.
Exactly.
It's not like we work with one type of person. Male, female, young, old, employed, corporate, athlete. We work with all these different people because the framework applies across the board.
Yeah, that's why I asked that question, because the hope of, a lot of people think, okay, life's over, it's done, after retirement, but there is ways to continue, your passion, right? Finding that passion and continue that passion. And so the work on your game framework, is that the 4 pillars? Is that the same thing? It's the 4 pillars that you just went through?
The foundation of work on your game was the 4 mindset pillars: discipline, confidence, mental toughness, personal initiative. So those all go under. So each one of those 4 pillars I gave you, we got sub pillars underneath and sub frameworks to sub frameworks. So everything's based on frameworks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let me change gears again. And, as men, we're put on this earth to provide, to protect, to procreate, to be the leaders of our kingdom, right? And without health, I believe we can't be that. But once we have a little bit of health in there, once we're doing the things we need to do to transform our health and our lives and our fitness, etc., how do we gain the skills to be leaders, in our family, leaders in our community? What are some things we can do to become better leaders, better communicators, etc.?
That's a great question. And I think it goes right back to the same thing that you can do in business is get around other people who are already on the path and get around people who may be about your level, and you can kind of share here's what I'm doing, here's what's working for me, here's what's working for me, and get with people who are doing better than you, whether that be a coach, whether it be a therapist, whether it be joining a mastermind, whether it be signing up for a course, something that can help you get better at the thing you do. And the great thing about the world we live in today, Funk, is that pretty much any problem you have, there's somebody out there selling the solution. Right. And you can go find those people, and a lot of people are giving away the solution, or at least they'll let you sample it for free, right? So you can at least go find out what's going on with the people who already have the answers to the questions that you have. So you don't have to do everything again by trial and error anymore. The trial and error era is over. Right? We're in an era of you can go and find that whoever has the information, they're already out there. You just don't know about them. So your job is just go find that person, and they'll be sharing with you exactly what you need. And when it comes to leadership and development, it's getting, I think, with a lot of men, especially once they find the right person, having a conversation so that someone can find out exactly what part of leadership. But is it leadership with how you're dealing with your children? Is it how you're dealing with your wife? Is it what you're doing on the job? Is it in building your business? Is it just the discipline to get out of bed when the alarm goes off? What are we talking about? It might be a combination of all of those, but that will require having a conversation so that someone can really get more specific and help that person get clarity. And that's a big thing in any form of help. Even when you're selling something to somebody, is the clarity, because when people are unclear, they tend to do less, and they tend to end up doing nothing when they're unclear. So there has to be clarity as to what exactly are we doing? Why are we doing it? What goal are we trying to reach? And that clarity is a big thing that a lot of people really need, and I find a lot of people don't have. So I don't know if you've had this experience, Funk, but sometimes when I'm on sales conversations with people, I'll be talking to someone and they don't even buy, but they'll say, I got so much clarity from this conversation. And all I did was just ask them a bunch of questions. I'm not even giving them any information. I'm just asking a bunch of questions, and just the action of having to say it makes it much more clear to them than just having it in their head. A lot of people think they have things in their head. You really don't have it until you have to say it. Then you realize how unclear it was. So just that clarity is a big thing.
I'm going to jump on that with in your head versus writing it down. I think I heard you say something about that. I watched one of your videos that was very powerful, because I'm going to let you talk about that, because I think that that's huge. It's very huge in regards to here versus writing it down. So can you talk to us about that?
I once heard Jim Rohn, who's one of the foundational guys in personal development. He actually basically taught Tony Robbins. And Jim said that if something is unclear it's hard for you to make something clear for other people, you need to make it clear for yourself first. And writing things down, when I first gotten involved in entrepreneurship, my first venture was I got invited to a network marketing company when I was in college. And the guy on the stage always said, I trust a short pencil to a long memory any day of the week. And that made a whole lot of sense to me. And the whole thing is that a lot of times we think we have things in our head, but then when someone challenges you to articulate it, you can't say it as clearly as you thought you were thinking it. So writing things down, another thing it does is it creates a double entry for your subconscious mind, because if you're thinking about it, that's one thing. But when you write it down, now you're showing the subconscious, okay, I'm going over this again. And we know that the subconscious mind is programmed through repetition. One of the ways it's programmed is through repetition. So when you write something down, you are giving it another entry, which means it's going to drive the grooves deeper into the subconscious if it's not there already. And the more times you write stuff down, another thing it does is it takes the burden off of your mind to remember, because the mind knows that you wrote it down. So now you won't wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it, because the subconscious mind saw you write it down. So now you've emptied you kind of press clear on the calculator, right? So you don't have to hold all that stuff in your brain, and it doesn't cloud your mentality when you're going to do another thing. So you can compartmentalize when you write things down. So there's so many values to writing stuff down. And it's funny because I see you holding the pen there. I don't write anything with my hands anymore. I don't think my hands even work. Right. So I write, everything I do is digital. So all my notes are digital. So somebody hacks my computer, you basically know everything I know. All right. It'll all be in there. So I do all typing, but the point is we're still writing it down, right? Yeah. I think your way is probably better for the subconscious. I've heard them say that if you write it with a pen, it is better than typing it, but I still type my stuff. Yeah. The point is I tell people, just get it on paper. All right. Get it on paper. So if it's digital paper, if it's physical paper, you got to get it out of your head so that you can clear your mind and give your mind some space to think about other things. So it's not trying to hold everything. It's kind of like the computers back in the day. If you had too many tabs open at the same time, eventually the computer froze. Yeah. Right. It's the same way that our brains work. Right. So you got to clear the tabs and get that stuff out of your head so that your mind knows that it's taken care of, it's safe, and now it can think about something else.
I like that. I like the computer analogy, because that happens to me quite a bit, actually. But one of the things that these guys struggle. I always say these guys, but the struggle for a lot of people is they don't get good sleep. And the reason why a lot of people don't get good sleep is, man, I got all these things going on in my head. I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that. Or, just imagine how much information we have access to right now. Like come down our phones or on our computers or on our, TV for watching YouTube or whatever. There's so much information. Your buddy's telling you one thing, this person's telling you another thing. And then of course it's what are the things that are stressing you out that day? And what I tell everyone, you got to write down the 3 things that you're going to do tomorrow. So before you go to sleep, write down those 3 things you're going to do tomorrow and have an action plan for each one. Because when you write it down, like you said, it comes out of here and it's on paper. But with the action plan, what you're doing is now you're right. Okay, I got to pick up my daughter at so-and-so. I got to make sure I leave at this time and blah, blah, blah. Now you don't have to worry about it. Now you can get to sleep. Now you can get that 7 to 9 hours deep sleep, because you're not sitting worrying about, what time do I have to leave? Do I have to tell this person? No, you're going to wake up in the morning. And not only that, when you wake up in the morning fresh, you're going to have all 3 things planned out. So now your day is planned, right? It's that strategy that we talked about. One of your 4 pillars is having a strategy. Well, having a strategy means having a plan. So, when you were talking about that, I remember listening to it. I was like, oh yeah, this is gold. This is gold. So work on your game. What other things do you guys do? Is it just entrepreneurs? What are the other things that you have going at work at your game?
So our main focus right now is on our coaching and consulting. So
Okay.
that's working with entrepreneurs and sometimes businesses, usually small businesses up to 10 employees they may be looking for, again, they want to make more money. Maybe they need some work with their marketing. Maybe it's just the principal, the person who wants some help with their mindset. It could be personal life stuff. It can be professional life stuff. That's our main focus is that. Also under that umbrella is our speaking. So I do a good amount of professional speaking, consulting, maybe working with sales teams. Sales seems to be my best angle just because people like the mindset aspect of it. Salespeople always need to be got to fill that gas tank. So that's a big thing there. And then, of course, we got the books. We have the courses in our university. If someone's a member of our university, they get access to all of our courses and all of our trainings. I create a ton of content. So there's a lot of material in there that will never run out. So people who are members of our university get access to all the training that we do. And I think that pretty much sums it up.
Okay. So where can people reach you? What are the avenues that you're reachable? This has been great. I think a lot of information. I love the 4 pillars because, that is the foundation, I think, of anything you're doing, whether it is in the business, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's sales, or whether it's transforming your health, right? You need those 4 pillars in place. And I know that you have the sub pillars, of course, but once you have those, then, you have everything you need to get it done. But where can people find you? Because your information is amazing. I'm going to actually say one more thing after you say this, but where can people find you?
Well, I know most people default to social media, so I'm on all the socials and Instagram at Dre Baldwin, just my name. I'm on all the other ones, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, X/Twitter, Facebook. Just look my name up, Dre Baldwin. I'm very easy to find. All my profiles are public. We publish everywhere, every day, multiple times. And then outside of social media, which is where I want people to go, outside of social media, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. So that's where that's where our program is. Again, that's our flagship program. That's where our focus is. Workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where you can work with me directly, have me as your direct coach.
Great. That's awesome, man. And one last thing before we go. One of the nuggets I took away from you, if you're listening right now, there's a ton of nuggets on your YouTube channel, short, digestible. You talked about expansion, and I may be getting this wrong, but you talked about expansion, using the things you have already to create new programs or new courses or something new. And as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh my God, I have all these body weight programming, because during COVID, I have a 3-year program, all online, follow along workouts, etc. But during COVID, I had to make body weight workouts because the gyms were closed. So now I have all of these body weight phases all there, but not a lot of people use it now because they have access to dumbbells and etc. So as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I think I'm going to create a body weight academy with all of the things we already have. But first, I'm going to do a survey. So I surveyed first to see, okay, if I do this, is this what you want? Like, because I understand there are still people in the world that don't have access to gyms or dumbbells, or et cetera, but still can get, can get results. And so I'm in the midst of that survey right now, getting incredible results. And we already have all of the program. It's just putting it into a new package, right? Like just repackaging it up. Here's our Bodyweight Academy. It's all the bodyweight programs that we already have, but most people don't see it. So thank you very much for that, because that it's not just about, I'll leave it here. It's not just about like hearing the information, but literally the very next day I heard that. I'm like, oh, I'm doing this. But then I had to pull myself back and go, we got to survey first. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Because sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, let's do this. Everyone's going to want it. So I'm surveying now. So I appreciate you. Thank you very much for that, because that is absolutely an incredible information that you shared with us. So thank you. I appreciate it.
And the thing is, what people should catch is that you implement it.
Yeah.
You went and did something. You didn't just hear it and say, that's a good idea, and then do nothing. You implement it, and now you're asking your audience, and they're going to tell you exactly what they want. And now once you sell it, you already got ready-made buyers.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for that. Anyway, listen to Dre Baldwin. Get on workonyourgameuniversity.com and all of his social. He's got great information. Thank you so much, Dre, for being on the podcast. I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you sharing your platform.